Fred Ritter.
Yes, I have you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You have time, Patty, too, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Get over here. Get your face in
Yeah,
here.
that's good.
We'll give it 3 more minutes and then I promise we'll start. Thanks for everybody's patience.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to do it without the attorney?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've all hung around him so much we should be able to answer for him anyways. Over the years. Somehow I doubt that, but that's okay. Okay, there's Terry. There's the other Terry.
Hello.
Good evening, Terry. How are we doing tonight?
Good. Sorry I'm late. I had trouble getting on.
Oh, no worries. I have a feeling Steve Procopio's having those same issues too.
Do we call him?
You know what? That's a really good question. I'm not sure I have his cell phone number.
I got his cell here. You want me to call him?
Yeah, if you could. Thank you.
Yeah. No answer.
Okay. So then let me just shoot a note to Mike, who is recording the meeting.
I think he's already started, Chuck.
He's got to do the YouTube link in.
I think he did it already. Maybe not. I see it on my screen.
Oh. All right. He says we're good to go. At some point, we'll get a recording notice too. So that should be a standard operating procedure now for everyone. Okay. So with that, I would like to call the, we don't have,
Marion,
all right, we'll get this figured out.
No Anne Marie?
No Anne Marie. I do not have her cell phone number.
Ooh.
I think I can handle this, guys. Wait a second. So with that, I'd like to call the November 9th, 2020 meeting of the Town of Cicero Zoning Board of Appeals to order. So in the absence of Ms. August, I will call the roll. Mr. Rabia? Oh, you muted yourself, Mark.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Here. Okay.
Very good. Ms. Luckett?
Here.
Mr. Palladino?
here.
Mr. Natali?
Here.
And Chuck Stanton here. Please note that tonight's meeting is being simulcast on YouTube and is also being recorded. I would like to present some housekeeping rules to ensure that this meeting goes smoothly. Please make all efforts to cut down on background noise or mute yourself, including cell phones and pagers. Please allow ample time for everyone to finish speaking. Please also announce your name prior to speaking to assist with following the flow of the conversation. So with that, if everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
Under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Has everyone read the minutes of the October 5th, 2020 meeting? Okay, are there any corrections? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the October 5th, 2020 meeting.
Okay,
It's Gary Palladino. I'll second that motion.
and we will call the roll. Mr. Rabia,
Yes, the motion.
Ms. Luckett,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Palladino,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Natali,
Yes to the motion.
and Chuck Stanton, yes to the motion. Cicero Town Board acknowledges the importance of full public participation at all public meetings. Therefore, we urge all who wish to address those in attendance to please enunciate clearly in front of there's various Zoom microphones.
Right now?
You can't really see anything, but
Just, if everybody's quiet, Mom can set her phone, we can listen.
Okay. At this time, I will make a motion that all actions taken tonight are type 2 actions and have a negative that has no impact on the environment unless otherwise indicated. Do I have a second?
Gary Palladino. I'll second that motion.
And I will call the roll. Mr. Rabia,
Yes, the
Ms. Luckett,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Palladino,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Natali,
Yes to the motion.
and Mr. Stanton says yes to the motion also. We have proof that all items on tonight's agenda have been advertised as directed by law. I will briefly review the process for tonight's meeting for the benefit of those present, as this process has been modified in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. First, the applicant will have an opportunity to describe the project. Second, the board will then ask questions about the project. Third, I will open a public hearing where any comments collected as prescribed in the meeting notice are read aloud and into the record. 4, board members will then follow up on any questions posed in the public hearing, and the applicant will then be given the opportunity to respond to those public input questions and provide additional information. 5, after the public hearing is closed, the board members will again have the opportunity to question the applicant. And 6, the board will openly discuss amongst ourselves the 5 factors that contribute to the final decision. At the end of the discussion of each factor, each board member will provide a yes or no answer. This board does not have a pre-agenda meeting, so there is no prior discussion of cases outside of this meeting. And lastly, a motion will be made either approving or denying the requested variance, seconded, and voted upon. So our first case tonight is Mr. Fred Ritter for a property on 8502 Tuttle Road. We are actually continuing this meeting or this hearing from last time. We deferred for some additional information. So Mr. Ritter, before I get you going, I just wanted to get everybody up to speed on where we are. Just as a reminder, we do have a county planning board resolution that talked about exposure to damage from natural hazards. Mr. Ritter provided a letter signed by a PE that shows his efforts for mitigating that. Otherwise, it said that there's no significant adverse intercommunity or countywide implications. Then through the last meeting, we requested an updated survey, and what I noted after taking a look at that is taking a look at that and reviewing our minutes, is that we had requested the easement alongside the property, which is shown. And we had also asked for location of the overhead line. That's not on here. I believe I don't see that on here. I think we can let that go since everybody's been out to the site, and the question I don't think is really whether the shed's underneath the power lines anymore. So the other reason I wanted to bring that up is that Mr. Ritter also provided the National Grid specifications for those overhead power lines, and they lack some clarity, I think, for all of us, and we couldn't necessarily get any more clarity on those. So we're gonna set those to the side and do our best not to conflict with what they might be. So with that, Mr. Palladino had made a suggestion at the last meeting. And let me zoom in here a little bit more. There we go. So if everybody can see that, Mr. Palladino had made a suggestion that based on the location of this sewer vent, if we actually relocated the shed so that the sewer vent was in the crook of the ramp where it intersects with the shed, which, looking at a 2-scale drawing here, that's a 3-foot shift to the southerly direction and a 3-foot shift to the easterly direction basically accomplishes that. That we basically maximize to as much amount practicable the front yard. So that, again, based on what Mr. Palladino was saying last time, that would increase the front yard from 10.4 feet to 13.4 feet, which is a 16.6 foot variance, or about 55% of the required front yard. And at this point, I'll let Mr. Ritter come in, and I want to make sure that he understands what that proposal and the impacts are. And then we'll open it up to the board.
This is Fred. Chuck, when you said the impact on moving the shed, I didn't follow quite what you were getting at.
So, well, there's a couple things. One is because we couldn't get clarity on the overhead line restrictions from National Grid.
Yes.
There was some question in my mind about what the actual vertical clearance needed to be based on some of the criteria there. And since we're not National Grid, I'm not even going to get close to that.
Okay.
To try and keep you out of trouble.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I guess the other portion of the impact is the proximity of this structure to the road boundary. And I know that's not the edge of the road. What Mr. Palladino had said, and Mr. Palladino, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you had said that a reasonable alternative to this might be to take that shed and move it 3 feet south and 3 feet east, so that sewer, so it's now more located, so the ramp is at the sewer vent as opposed to at the side of the shed.
That's correct. That's correct.
So for Mr. Ritter, that was what I was referring to.
This is Fred again, and I have one question. Is it moving the shed east towards the river, putting the vent pipe directly at the corner where the arrow is pointing for the 372.2 instead of in the crock? Is that at all permissible? Still getting the setback off the street further than it is now by 2 feet or so.
3
But
feet.
it would, I measured it this weekend. It's like, 2.5, somewhere's in that area, between 2 and 3. But that would give us, keep the opening between the garage and the other corner of the shed for passage as wide as possible.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And I'm just, it's Gary Palladino, and I'm just talking out loud. But you're saying just move it back towards the river,
Yes,
which would be east,
yes,
but not move it south.
yes.
Okay. I was out there today, and it brings up something I was going to talk about, because I don't know, perhaps maybe Chuck, you could answer this question. Looking at it, and I know as I proposed at the October meeting, but if it were to be moved south, the full, whatever, 2.5 to 3 feet, there's a steel, I don't know, looks like a clean out or something, a steel like manhole in the stone.
Yes.
I don't know what it is. It's got a S on it. It's probably about 18-inch diameter, maybe something. And I don't know what it does. Anybody know what that goes to? Is it a sewer, part of a sewer thing?
It is
Okay.
exactly that. This is Fred Ritter again. I'm sorry. It is a clean out over the sewer line.
Okay. So,
It's an access.
okay. So what we're saying is we can achieve a larger front yard setback by just going approximately 2.5 to 3 feet east, leaving it where it is, and that would not encumber any type of, if anybody had to get into the sewer clean out area.
Exactly.
And your vent pipe would still be protected from.
It would be at the corner of the building. Yes.
Okay. I follow.
Okay, very good. Does anyone else from the board have any questions? Okay. So we never opened the public hearing last time, and there were no other comments provided to me. There were no comments provided to me in the beginning. So at this time, I will open the public hearing. We have no comments. So as there are no comments, at this time, I will close the public hearing. So does the board have any other further questions? Mr. Palladino, do you want to talk more about the proposal and counter proposal?
I'm reviewing my notes right now, trying to see if there's something else.
Okay. Can everyone see that photo?
Yes.
Yes.
So the driver's side rear tire, where my pointer is where that clean out is. Mr. Natali and I were on site yesterday, and we did witness that.
No, I don't know. What does the board think? I happen to be in agreement with Mr. Ritter. I think we can achieve the front yard setback, gain a little bit more. I know Mark had suggested during the October meeting, or maybe not suggested, but the question was raised as to about putting the shed in the back. And looking at that with the easement and the deck and the overhang, without having put a scale to the survey, it looks like you may only have about 3 foot to possibly 4 foot before he's on top of his neighbor's easement. So if the shed were to go back to the backyard, I don't see that. I guess what I'm saying is I don't see that as a feasible alternative to the placement of the shed.
Mhm.
Did anybody else notice that or see that?
I did observe that too, and I don't want to put words into Mr. Natali's mouth, but we did notice that his next door neighbor, Mr. Ritter's next door neighbor, does have a shed in the backyard, but their house is set back further, and the structure is significantly smaller than what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I noticed that too. And I think his side yard he's got greater side yard width on that side. So, but those are my only comments.
What does everybody else think?
I think it's a good solution.
Well, I think I'm okay with the solution. I think there's a way to mitigate this. I mean, if we're gonna move it, we can move it all the way to the right setback, right? I mean, it can be done. Let's call it what it is. It's just a question of, do we want to live with the 13 or the 14 off the road boundary? And again, I think I'm okay with it, but I mean, there's a path to meeting the code here.
Okay.
Gonna call it what it is, right?
Yes. Mr. Natale, what are your thoughts?
If Mr. Ritter is thoroughly happy with that, I'm happy.
With the vent pipe being at the corner, Fred Ritter's happy.
Good.
I guess I would just like to note that in the absence of our codes official being here, there may be, if we were to go the route of trying to push this back to 30 feet, there may be some issues with fire code, as well as possibly some egress issues. But I'm not the codes professional. So, Mr. Palladino, are you prepared to discuss the 5 factors?
Yes, I can do that. With a little help from my friends.
As always.
All right, I'd like to go over the 5 factors we have to take into consideration for Mr. Ritter's request for a variance. And the first one being, will there be an undesirable change produced in the character of the neighborhood, or will the granting of this area variance create a detriment to nearby properties? I looked at that, and my answer to that is no. There are, in fact, other sheds 3 doors down to the north. There's a shed that's considerably closer, and so it's partly covered by some evergreen trees or whatever, big green brush. And there's garages and houses that are closer to the road than what this shed is. And the fact that Mr. Ritter has decided to move the shed back to the east approximately 2.5 feet, I see that there is no detriment or undesirable change to the neighborhood.
Okay. So just to remind everybody from last meeting, we're gonna go down the roll and just make sure we're gonna get a yes or no from everybody as to whether they agree with it. So, Mr. Rabia. Oh, you didn't unmute yourself quick enough.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lockett.
I agree.
Mr. Natale.
I agree.
And Mr. Stanton agrees.
Very good. Factor number 2, can the benefit sought by the applicant be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance? Again, I say no. I feel that mainly with the neighbor's easement, that if he needs a shed or wants a shed, especially to put something in, like earlier in the October meeting, you said his boat and a few other things, that he needs to have a shed in the front and not in the back. And honestly, like I said, I don't see where he can achieve his benefit any other way.
Okay, Mr. Rabia.
I disagree.
And unless you want to elaborate, we'll reference the minutes for that.
No, I disagree because I think the shed can be moved to meet the front setbacks.
Okay. Ms. Luckett.
I'm going to agree with Gary.
Okay, Mr. Natale.
I agree.
And Mr. Stanton, I would I would disagree. There's a big caveat here, though. I think it can be moved. I think that we may create some other issues by moving it, though. Mr. Palladino, you can continue.
Number 3, is the requested variance substantial? And yes, it is. We have a front yard setback, which is now going to be approximately 55% less than required.
Mr. Rabia,
I agree.
Ms. Luckett,
I agree, but I only get 19%. But anyway, that's substantial as well.
Your setback is approximately. It's 55. You got 19% less than required? I don't think so.
Okay, my math's wrong.
Yeah.
I agree.
I have no clue. Okay.
Mr. Natale,
I agree.
and Mr. Stanton agrees.
Number 4 is, will the variance have an adverse effect on nearby physical or environmental conditions? I say no. I don't see how it possibly could.
Ms. Luckett, or sorry, Mr. Rabia,
I agree.
Ms. Luckett,
I agree.
Mr. Natale,
I agree.
Mr. Stanton agrees. At least I got my own name right. Mr. Palladino, you can continue.
Okay, with the 5 factors being discussed, I'd like to make a motion on behalf of Mr. Ritter to approve an area variance request for the property located at 8502 Tulare Road in Cicero. The requested variance is for a front yard setback of 13.4 feet where 30 is required.
Okay, do I have a second?
This is Terry. I'll second.
Please bear with me. I'm performing 2 or 3 functions tonight. Okay, so now for the roll. Mr. Rabia,
I'm gonna say no to motion. I think, as we look at this, we always have to consider it with the shed not being there. I think the shed, if it was not there, I think we would have cited it much further back and it would have been made from the correct materials to be close to the garage if we needed it to be.
Ms. Luckett,
Yes to the motion.
just confirmation, that was a yes, correct?
That was a yes.
Okay. Mr. Palladino. Mr. Palladino,
Yes, the motion.
Mr. Natale,
Yes to the motion, but I'd like to make the comment that if he came to us with a plan, I would have encouraged him to not spend that kind of money on a shed and renovate or expand the porch. And I think it would have been a better look from the street. But yes to the motion.
okay, so noted. And then Mr. Stanton, I will vote no to the motion for the same reasons that Mr. Rabia has. However, this is a 3-2 motion, so the motion is carried. Mr. Ritter, congratulations. We'll get the forms all set and over to the planning department, and within a couple days, you should be good to go.
Will that get a copy emailed to me?
Absolutely,
Do I
you'll get a
pick it up?
copy. I believe you can. I believe they will send you something, but you can also make an appointment and pick it up.
Okay, because I'm, as you know, out of town and a lot of times don't get there till late Friday, but
Okay.
if an email works, that would be great. If not, I'll make time to do it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, this is Steve. Sorry to be late to the meeting here.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah. So you'll be notified by our office, Mr. Ritter.
Of everything that I need to do.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ritter. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening, everybody.
Thanks, you too.
Me too.
Hey, Chuck, can I ask a question before we move on?
Sure thing, Mr. Palladino.
on the 5 factors, number 2, was there 2 no's and 3 yeses?
Correct.
Correct. Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Very good. Our second case tonight is Tom and Patty Hemingway for a property on 7823 Aeropagitica Avenue. Can you folks hear us?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, we can hear you. That's good. So before we get started, I want to make sure we note we do have an Onondaga County Planning Board resolution. Did you folks get a copy of this?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Without going into painful detail about this, they do say that the referral has no significant adverse intercommunity or countywide implications and may be consequently acted upon solely by the referring board. So with that, Mr. and Mrs. Hemingway, if you would like to describe the project for us.
It's going over the front door, and I gave all the materials, and I was going to build it to the planning, to the zoning guy. I didn't keep a copy for myself. But
It's just gonna be a roof and
just a roof overhang, 10 foot by 12.
no sides, no windows, none of that. Just a walk through, just a roof over there with the poles.
Is that to kind of help protect against the weather when you're walking in your front door?
Yes, it's for checking the weather, the sun, because the sun's always beating on the house. You can see I just redid the house because it faded all my siding by the door.
Mhm.
There it is.
So my understanding and talking with both of you yesterday was that it would encompass the door and the window.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
would extend to the edge of the paved area here. roughly.
Correct.
Okay. So with that, does the board have any questions or comments? Okay, no questions or comments, guys?
I jumped.
I think it's pretty straightforward ask, Chuck, right? I mean, I think it's clear. I mean, the reasons are well thought out and certainly very understandable.
Yes, and I would note that there's similar, I guess, covers that are provided within this neighborhood, and we're no stranger to variances in this area either because of the size of the lots and the way our codes changed over time. So if there's no other questions, at this time I'll open the public hearing. Mr. Procopio, did we get any comments on this one?
No, we did not receive any comments.
Okay, very good. So as there were no comments submitted, at this time I will close the public hearing. Again, last chance. This does seem pretty straightforward. So would someone like to review the 5 factors on this?
We can do it if nobody else wants to.
With that ringing endorsement, I'll have Ms. Luckett do the 5 factors.
Okay, number 1, whether an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties would be created. I said no because many of the homes, as you go down the street, have a similar roof overhang.
Mr. Rabia.
I agree.
Mr. Palladino.
I agree.
Mr. Natale.
I agree.
And Mr. Stanton agrees.
Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. I said no. The purpose is to create a front porch area, and as much as the front of the house is already at 30.1 feet. Any addition to the front entryway would require a variance.
Mr. Rabia,
I agree.
Mr. Palladino,
I agree.
Mr. Natale,
I agree.
Mr. Stanton agrees.
Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. I said yes, they want to be 9.98 feet closer or 33%. That's substantial, but not necessarily a reason to deny a variance.
Miss Luckett, hold on one second.
That's not at my house.
No, I know, I'm trying to, and I may have accidentally muted a few people trying to get that out of there. So my apologies to Mr. Natale and the Hemingways. I muted you. You guys can unmute yourselves. Terry, if you could please say that again for us, we'd definitely appreciate it.
The question was whether the requested area variance was substantial. I said yes. He wants to be 9.98 feet closer. That's 33%. It's substantial, but not a reason to deny.
Mr. Rabia,
I agree.
Mr. Palladino,
I agree.
Mr. Natale, you're going to have to unmute yourself. I accidentally muted you.
Maybe
I
we
think I inadvertently caused a technical issue here.
Maybe we could go with thumbs like in the Roman days, you know?
Oh, I think you got it. There you go. Thank you, Mr. Natale. And Mr. Stanton agrees, and I want to just make the note that this doesn't necessarily constitute a reason to deny the variance.
Number 4, whether the proposed variance would have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. There's really not a change in the environmental conditions because they're putting a roof over an area that's already paved, so there's no increase in impervious surface.
Mr. Rabia,
I agree.
Mr. Palladino,
I agree.
Mr. Natale,
I agree.
and Mr. Stanton agrees.
Number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Yes, the applicant's choosing to construct a porch that does not meet zoning code.
Mr. Rabia,
I agree. Excuse me.
Mr. Palladino,
I agree.
Mr. Natale,
I agree.
Mr. Stanton agrees. Ms. Luckett, would you like to make a motion?
I would. I make a motion to approve an area variance where the applicant is seeking to construct a 10-foot by 12-foot roof addition to an existing house on a 0.18 acre parcel in an R10 zoning district. Total front yard setback be reduced from 20.02 feet.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion. It's Mark.
Very good. Thank you. And we'll call the roll. Mr. Rabia,
Yes to the motion.
Ms. Luckett,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Palladino,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Natale,
Yes to the motion.
finally, Mr. Stanton says yes to the motion. Motion's carried. Mr. and Mrs. Hemingway, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
We
you.
will, you're welcome. We'll, like the last one, we'll pass this on to the codes office and they'll be in contact with you when you're all set.
Okay.
I know we can't do it like this year now with the weather
It's good for
changing,
you.
but is it, how long till we can't do it?
Well, I mean, we're not going, I don't think the town would prevent you from doing construction anytime during the year. And Mr. Procopio, stop me if I'm wrong. I mean, if you, theoretically, if you got this building permit tomorrow, you could start tomorrow on it.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. The variance is good for a year. You just need to get a building permit within the year. We just have to have this decision, filed in the town clerk's office, and then once that occurs, we can issue a building permit.
Okay.
That's all the questions we have.
Okay, very good.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah,
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Stay safe.
Yes.
Thank you, you too.
All right.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
So with that, there being no other business before the board, is there any business before the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Natale.
I'd like to ask Mr. Procopio, as I'm looking at the Ritter application, why he didn't charge double because the work had already been done without a permit.
Done.
Yeah, we're done.
We can go.
Yes, you folks can go. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, you don't have to sit through this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
You too, thank you.
Gary?
Yes,
I would have to check on that, Gary. When the application came in, I don't know that I was aware if it was charged double or not. I believe what happened there, we saw the shed after it was already completed. So it wasn't like there was a stop work. Okay, so when we recognized it, then we required him to start the application process because, as you know, it needs to be denied in order to apply for a variance. So I would have to check to see what the thought process is when the application came in.
okay.
If it was just overlooked, potentially.
Okay. Thank you.
Steve, it's Mark. Can you just refresh me on how close buildings can, or how close structures can be when they're both made out of wood? I don't recall that number.
Yeah, well, that's changed for accessory structures to a single family dwelling. So at one time, so there's the New York State Building Code or Residential Code requires a minimum distance of 5 feet from a property boundary for fire separation. Prior to the code changing, I believe it was in 2016 or maybe even prior, you would draw an imaginary property boundary between those two structures and require that distance. So that 3 feet went to 5 feet in one code change. So you'd have to have 10 feet between buildings. But in the last code revision, New York State made an exception for an accessory structure to a dwelling. So there actually is no required distance, believe it or not, between two.
Okay.
This,
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is what I thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
I seem to recall that in a prior discussion at some point, but
Right.
but thanks, appreciate it.
Mark, was that question in regards to the Ritter and moving the shed back?
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. That's, I mean, I know we were talking, Chuck made a comment that said, how, I don't know how close we can be. And I thought it was pretty darn close. And I just wanted to ask Steve what the number was.
At this point, you really just need room to maintain the two buildings in between, essentially.
Really?
Okay.
I have a question, Steve. If he can't move it, if the weather changes here.
I didn't hear everything you said, Gary.
If the weather changes, I mean, he should not be under any obligation to change it right now. What would be a reasonable time frame for him to change it?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's going to get a building permit issued now based on this decision. Theoretically, I guess he would have a year. I would not suggest that he take that long. I would, as soon as the weather permits, in the spring, that he get it done.
Okay, yeah, I agree. He's got a year. Okay, thank you.
Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
I just want to apologize for being late. I for some reason I was having the planning board meeting time 6:30 stuck in my head. And I showed up at 6:30.
Well, that's the first sign, Steve,
Yeah, well, there's a lot of those signs showing up lately, Gary. I don't know what the heck is going on, but
Tell me about it, brother.
Yeah.
Well, we'll give you this one, Steve. That's okay.
Yeah. So I take it the Ritters just had to move the building back a little bit and closer to the existing garage, I take it?
Yeah, we had them slide it 3 feet to the east, so back towards the rear of the property.
Okay.
It was a 3-2 decision though, so.
Well, I caught the end of it. That I did see. The clearance to the electric entrance cable, I think, is more than adequate, where I could tell, even with moving the building.
Yeah, I felt that too, but without a clear direction from National Grid, I really didn't want to weigh in on that.
Yeah. The only thing he gave us was a boilerplate code.
Yes.
And I looked at it probably the same way you and everybody else. I mean, my interpretation of it was he had to be 4.5 feet because nobody's going to be walking on the peak of the roof. So
Exactly.
and it was more than that.
And the electrical code actually allows 3 feet as long as it's not next to a walkable surface. So anyways.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know for next time.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
Right, Jay, this is fun.
Does anyone second that?
I'll second. It's Mark.
All in favor?
Dirty poopers.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. I believe our next meeting is December 7th.
Are you gonna send me a form now?
Yes, I'll send everybody forms, and we'll move on from there, just like last time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okie dokie.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you,
Guys.
Bye.